These can be a couple of tough celebrations. As Father mentioned, we are asked at the outset to focus on death. Who likes to do that? Death of those we have loved, family, friends, our own death. And yet, what we find in all of this pondering of death is the depth of our faith. We don't want to make light of how hard this can be to consider human death. Earlier today, my two sisters and I began the conversations to move our mother into hospice care. We never want to minimize the effect of pondering human death. And yet, the celebrations that we have this weekend, All Saints and All Souls, really help us because they remind us of a couple of very important things. God is more powerful than anything else. And our fellowship, our church, is bigger than we can ever realize. Because that's really what we remember this weekend, both in the Feast of All Saints and in the Feast of All Souls. We remember just how big our church is. And the fact is that death does not change any of that. Death is simply a door. There are many things about our parish and our church that I love so much. One of the things that I love about the layout of our church here is very simple. You see the crucified Christ there? Now I want everybody to turn around best you can and look into the choir loft. What do you see there? The risen Christ. For us, the cross is never the end. That's the message. Yes, Christ died for us, and we follow Christ into death. But as St. Paul reminds us, because we have been joined to Christ in baptism, we also join Christ in resurrection. And those who have gone before us, marked with the sign of faith, those who have gone before us into death, have also gone before us into life. The windows that we celebrate here of the saints, of the various occupations of our parishioners, were surrounded by our communion of saints. And we're reminded just by the sweep of this church of the journey of faith, from life through death to new life. And that's the message that we celebrate. This communion that we have entered with our baptism and confirmation, the food that we get for the journey from this altar of Christ's body and blood, all of it leading us back to God, the ultimate destination. Death is never the end, but only a door to a new beginning. The Feast of All Saints, which technically is today, reminds us of the holiness to which we're called. All of us are called to be saints. In the ancient church, that's what the members of the church called themselves. We are the saints. How about that? Those were the days before we had formal declarations of so-and-so being a saint. For those earliest Christians, the fact that we were one with Christ, we participated in the holiness of God Himself. We are called to be saints. And whether we're good at being saints or not so good at being saints, we still go through that doorway to new life. So yes, initially this focus on death can be hard to do. But that focus opens up the reality that our God is more powerful than we are, and that the church is larger than we can ever imagine. Father mentioned last week about synod, about a coming together, and the fact that as Christians we are called to act together. And so we are. Whether we are on this side of death, or whether we've already passed through that doorway and are part of the communion of saints or the faithful departed, all of us together are church, together in Christ with God.